So, welcome to this episode of Crap No One Tells You. With me today is Tanya Horst from Blueprint Brewing, and she is going to tell us about some of the crap no one tells you about running a brewery. So, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So, let's just start straight out. What is some crap no one tells you about running an actual brewery?
There can be a lot. It's kind of like where to start. It's because the opening of the brewery, that's a struggle in and of itself, and trying to figure out between licensing and permitting and all the hoops that you have to jump through for that. There's big issues. There's issues even when it comes to having people follow up with you. That you're sitting there waiting, ready to write out a check to pay people for their services, but you can't track them down
They
because
don't.
they have so much other stuff going on.
Right.
Um, and then everything from supply chain issues and things that we're seeing now with inflation and costs. And it's just a never ending cycle of a lot of crap that you don't expect that people don't tell you
A
about.
never-ending cycle, right?
Uh-huh.
So, you originally had no intention of working in the brewery when you got involved,
I
correct?
did not, correct.
You were just gonna throw some money at it and sit back and go having a beer occasionally, right?
Yes.
Like that was the grand
That
plan.
was the plan.
Okay. And that apparently didn't go well.
No,
Okay.
no.
So how did you get back involved with actually having to go work there again? Or not again
Right.
in the first
To
place,
begin
right?
with. So I was in corporate America doing commercial insurance for 20 plus years, underwriting insurance for craft breweries, lo and behold. And Harleysville Blueprint Brewing came across my desk, so I started taking a look at it, and that's how I ended up investing in it. But COVID hit, and then one of the owners had left, another owner had left, and then it was one man left standing, the owner. The general manager had also left. So I kind of stepped in to help him out. And then between homeschooling two kids and working corporate in a management position and trying to help with the brewery, it was a bit too much. So walked away from corporate and stepped into the tap room.
So so you function as the GM, right?
Yes.
So what is involved with, I'm assuming you handle day-to-day operations, you handle all that stuff, you
Yep.
just don't do the actual brewing, right?
Correct.
Okay. So what's involved with day-to-day operations of a brewery? Like I'm assuming it's not just, hey, come have a beer and, you know, life is good.
Everybody thinks it's that easy, and then you start doing it, and it's like, no, not so much. It's a lot. So it's anything from events, so musicians, booking talent, listening to what they can offer before you talk to them, before you bring them into the brewery and book them for a show. It's dealing with food trucks if you don't have a kitchen, which is a whole nother beast because there's licensing that comes along with that, and that can be an issue. There's creating events for specific holidays, for like pictures with Santa Claus, for Halloween parties, for 4th of July. There's balancing the ebbs and flows of the business and when to put things on tap, when to brew what, because it's kind of cyclical, but you brew certain styles of beer at different times of the year because of the demand. So stouts tend to be more popular in the colder months. So we kind of go to the stout direction versus the Pilsner direction. So handling the brew schedule is part of what I do as well with my partner, the owner, Kyle. We do scheduling, we do ordering, we do supplies. We are there when the tap room is open to manage it, to make sure our bartenders are okay. We're doing crowd control if things get out of control. One wouldn't think they do at a craft brewery, but they do. We've seen it, we've witnessed it. It's not fun, but we deal with it.
Have you moved your mailing address to the business yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
So you guys are technically classified as a microbrewery,
Yeah.
right? So there's like a differentiation between levels.
Yeah. So you've got your nano breweries, your microbreweries, and you get into your bigger, more national chains, and it's more based on the barrel size of the brew space.
So when you say barrel size, that's what you're brewing in or your output?
That's the output. How many
Okay.
barrels we're putting out per year.
Okay. How many do you guys have the capacity of doing?
We put out approximately 600 barrels last year.
Okay. And how much is in a barrel?
How much is it? You're making me go back to the math that I
Yes,
don't
I am.
follow because my brewer has all that. Um,
Is it 50-gallon barrels? Is it 30 gallons or is it?
I believe they can change. So we
Okay.
serve in half kegs.
Okay.
I believe. No, I'm not even going
So,
to try to quote
but
it
the
'cause I don't
keg
remember.
isn't a barrel, right?
Correct. It's not. So half kegs, you can get the full kegs, but they're too heavy to move.
Yep.
So that's why you get the half kegs. And that's what, when the beer comes out of the bright, it goes into the half kegs. That goes into the walk-in that gets put on tap. So we use half kegs and we use sixtels. And 3 sixtels go into a half keg.
Okay. So you guys have a tap room
Mhm.
and um what's in well, not really what's involved with it, but people don't understand that often even something as simple as, the tap itself
Mhm.
isn't quite as simple as it looks, right? It's
Right.
not just plug it in and pull the handle and beer magically comes out, right?
No, this is true.
Do you guys temperature control beers based on what it is that you're offering at any given time? Does all the beer come out at the same temperature?
The
Or-
beers that we have typically come out at the same temperature. The ones that we are going to start moving into and playing with, like more like the saisons, anything that might be on nitro. If you have something that you've gotten a firkin that can be tapped, like that's more of like a room temperature. That's not necessarily has to be kept at 37, which is what our cold box is set at for the beers that come off tap.
So you are moving in the direction of temperature controlling different beers based on flavor profile.
Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah, because we want to look into, we're going to possibly age one of the stouts that we have coming out. So we're going to let it sit for a year in bourbon barrels. So, yes, I know, right up your alley.
Wasn't going to say anything. But so when you guys started this, because you were involved pretty much from the beginning, even though you were on the sidelines, you kind of
Right.
saw everything that was going on.
Yeah, you're in there.
How difficult is it to go through a licensing process to start a brewery?
Just to speak to what, like, kind of what we're looking at and what I've talked to Kyle about, it's not that hard. Sometimes it can just be like the length of time that it takes to get things done and move things through the process. And there's different types of licenses. So if you want like just a separate storage location, that's a separate type of license. If you wanted to open up a second location, that's another type of license. If you want to brew out of a different location. So I think it's just navigating the different styles of licensing and then what the paperwork is needed, how long it's going to take to push through the system.
So there's a license for every. It's not like
But
a
it's not
traditional
like a
business where
simple.
you just file and go, okay,
Nope.
let's go.
No, because then on top of that, like we have to have the brewery's license, but we still have to have our EIN, the LLC.
Right. So you got to
all
go
that
through
stuff.
all the traditional filing that every business has to do, and then you have another layer on top of it.
Yep.
What about are you guys regulated or inspected or?
Yeah, we'll be inspected by the health department. They'll come out. The Department of Ag comes out every now and then just for inspections. We've had COVID inspections when all the rules and regulations were in place to make sure we were COVID compliant. So yeah, we get inspected.
Okay. So what's your favorite part about actually doing this job? Because with the amount of hours you seem to work, there's got to be something you really love about it, right?
I like seeing the company grow, watching it grow. I had gotten burnout in insurance. So the change I think was kind of welcomed. And while this is stressful, I do enjoy doing it. I like being around people. I like seeing people. I like having my hands on in the brew space and working with our brewer on, like we just sat down for an hour and a half yesterday, going over our brew schedule for the rest of the year. And like being able to multitask and do these different things and meet new people and network, and
Every day's a new day.
every day is a new day.
And this is, it's one of the things that actually a few of our guests have talked about, I believe, is the stress level with starting or running your own business
Mhm.
can often be through the roof.
Mhm.
But when they're comparing it to their corporate stress,
Mhm.
they go, yeah, that stress was unbearable. This stress is actually nice,
Yeah,
right? Like it's a different type of stress.
it is.
And it's one of the things I don't think people prepare you for when you go from, because having a corporate job is honestly pretty cushy, right?
Mhm.
You have a guaranteed paycheck, you know what your work is, you go in every day.
Right.
It's a routine. Life is good, no concerns. And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, you're a small business owner now. If you don't sell beer next month, you won't get a paycheck.
Right.
Right? And it's like, what? So what have you guys done locally as far as like, because you're becoming pretty well known in our local community,
Mhm.
and that's not something that happens overnight.
Right.
So how did you guys kind of build on that community effort and community spirit that you guys have developed over the last few years?
A lot of it came from like when I first came into this industry and started working at Blueprint and kind of helping Kyle, my business partner. I didn't know what I didn't know. So I reached out to people within the industry. Like I talked to Rich over at Stable 12 and Nika at Wellcrafted, Marat at Boardroom, Scott at Round Guys, Bob over at 10-7, Kate over at McAllister, like all these people just to talk to them and take what they were telling me and then apply and see what worked and what didn't. So it's just trying to figure out everything and get it moving in the right direction.
Well, you did one of the things I tell people all the time. If you're a new business in a local community,
Mhm.
reach out to other business owners.
Yeah.
Even if you think that they're your competitor,
Mhm.
talk to them. You're going to be amazed at the responses you get from them. Because
Oh, and it's phenomenal. Like I very much value the friendships that I've gotten through this industry and for I thank everybody that's helped along the way for this because I wouldn't have been able to do it on my own without the help from others. So, and it's a very collaborative industry too. So, being part of the community and getting us integrated into not just Harleysville, but also like Talmenton, Lansdale,
Mhm.
Chalfont, all these different other places and kind of expanding our reach a little bit and getting our footprint a little larger has been something that's been nice to be able to do.
So yeah, your initial footprint was like, if we're talking aerial miles, you're probably talking like 5 to 7 miles.
Mhm.
And then, you add 3 miles to that, that expands your audience
Right.
drastically, right?
Mhm.
Because,
Yep.
well, because of where you're situated and also just how the math works.
Right.
But so who have been some of the people that kind of helped you along in the process where you went, oh my God, that's brilliant. I didn't think of that until they mentioned it.
Mhm. Well, it's kind of like the cast of characters that I just rattled off. Like Rich at Stable 12, he was very helpful. Kyle, my business partner, the one that has been with us from the beginning, he was a avid home brewer. So that was kind of where his part was. And he's also like the engineer, architect. So that's kind of where the Blueprint name came from.
Got it.
Um, But his insight, his input, his guidance, and then, like I said, Kate at McAllister, she's one of the first people that I befriended and just sat down, picked her brain. We did lunches and reaching out to Nika over at Wellcrafted and Diane Mole, who's at Wellcrafted now, who
Right.
came from Victory. Um, I've talked to Marat at different,
From Victory, like the big victory?
the big Victory.
Okay.
Yep. That one.
Just making sure.
Yep. Um, And even like the people that I've met along the way, like Mario Balbi, my boyfriend, he's HVAC, he's contracting, he's commercial HVAC and mechanical. Like he ended up redoing our glycol system and just working with him and learning kind of what he does in the back when he did the glycol system. Anytime we have an issue with the taps, he
Mhm.
comes in, he's able to fix it. Um, and then talking to different brewers that are around, like Alex and Jake over at Round Guys.
So just to be clear, because people are not going to know generally listening to this, but you are talking breweries that are all within 5 to 10 miles of where you guys are.
Mhm.
Like you literally have overlapping markets
Mhm.
with some of these people.
Yep.
And they're still helping each other out.
Mhm.
That's the beauty of this,
Yeah.
right? Is
Yeah.
I think and not just for your industry, but I think your industry is specifically like you guys work more together, I think, than most people realize.
Mhm.
And probably more so than a lot of other businesses.
Mhm.
But it's fantastic that, do you guys ever like share recipes? Does someone go over and go, oh my God, I tried this. Don't do it.
Well, I mean, like we'll talk about not, and maybe brewers do. I don't know that
Mhm.
side of it, but like we'll talk about different beers and different styles and who likes what and what everybody's brewing to follow because you kind of want to be, you don't want to be the one that follows the trends. You want to be the one that sets the trends. And I just had a conversation with Mario about this last night. And he loves that saying. And it's something that I've talked about a little bit before when we brewed cake, which is a cream ale. It's not a trend right now, but it's a popular style of beer. And
It's a what? A cream ale?
hmm
Okay.
You'll have to try it. I'll bring some next time.
Okay.
Um, but like we talk a lot about like likes, dislikes, what we're seeing in the market and things like that. Like we're a bunch of breweries and ours are working together on a big collaborative beer right now. So that's another thing that is really nice about this industry. Our brewers can get together and come up with a recipe and figure out the details. And then as the general managers, owners, we figure out what we want to do with it and how to market it.
Interesting. So everybody will be making basically the same beer or the same type of beer? As
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Just a little.
I guess we're going to have to hold off on releasing this episode.
No, we don't have to do that.
No, okay. But that's fascinating. So what are some things that you have seen that both have been trending as far as beer goes and possibly are going to trend? I know it's a crystal ball, but
Right. I mean, IPAs still lead the pack, lead the way. Whether it be your basic session IPA or you get into the doubles and the triples. And like this time of year going into the winter, you start seeing some more of the heavy hitters come out, like your higher ABV. And that goes for the stouts too. They'll start coming out more. Lagers, they're making a push. They're coming. And like we had a rotating Mexican lager on called Luchador. And at this point, it's going to be one of our flagships and we're going to keep it rotating through.
that was a beer you tested at some point and it just...
We released it every May,
Okay.
Cinco de Mayo, but then it was so popular and we didn't really have anything on that was that, like when you have a customer comes in, what's like a Miller Lite or what's like a Corona? Luchador.
Got it. So
So-
that was demand that generated that.
Mhm.
You said your brewer used to be a home brewer. That's how he started?
My business partner, Kyle. Yeah, he wasn't a true home brewer. Like he just did it for fun. He has another business that he runs, but he used to brew on the side at the house. But our brewer now, he used to be a home brewer.
Okay.
So, and now he's brewing on a 7-barrel system and he's nailing it. He's doing phenomenal.
People don't realize there's a lot of science
Oh,
to
yeah.
brewing. Like it's not just, hey, let me throw in a handful of this and a couple of these and see what turns out.
Yeah.
Like you can do that in your little homebrew kit.
Right.
That's like 5 gallons or 10 gallons.
Right.
But how big are your tanks?
We have a 7-barrel system.
Okay.
So we have 4 7s and a 15-barrel.
Yeah. So you don't kind of play around with that. Do you guys have a test system that you use as well? Or does he test brew like on the side?
We have a little system, and I think he might still dabble at home here and there. And he's got a good network of friends that are also brewers that are very skilled. So I know he's talked to them, reached out to them with different things. Like he just brewed his very first own creation of like his own recipe from start to finish. And it's our top selling IPA right now. It's called Mikey's First Ride.
Appropriate.
It was appropriate. We went with that. And then we put a picture of his very first car, which was a station wagon on the label.
Nice.
So, and everybody, the beer flies. And it was a phenomenally brewed beer. He did very well with it.
And that was his first, like, from
Big
scratch.
batch. Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. He's in the process. He's going to make a recipe for a new triple that we're going to release this winter. So
So a lot of the recipes that I'm going to call them recipes because it's like the culinary industry, right? People think, they came up with this because you see it at a restaurant.
Right.
But 99% of ideas are stolen from someone else when it comes to culinary, cooking, all that stuff.
Right.
So I'm assuming in the brewing industry or when someone's creating a recipe, you're borrowing 80, 90% of a recipe from someone else, and then you're just adapting it. I mean, there's only so many ways you can skin a cat, right?
Right. And like you end up like and I heard this a couple of years ago shortly after I first started in this. It's really hard to come up with a hop combination to brew with that hasn't already been done by somebody else.
Right.
In the world. And it's Like we did a beer called HBC 431 that was eventually renamed as Tribe. HBC 431 was an experimental hop. We tasted it in another IPA from Ludland Island Brewing over in New Jersey, and we wanted to brew with it because we liked it so much. So our brewer, who was different than what we have now at the time,
Mhm.
developed the recipe using this hop, and it was a phenomenal beer.
So you took a core ingredient and then just modified what you did with it to get your own.
Yeah, and like I'm going to be researching hops over the next couple days and working with our brewer for the 2 new IPAs that we're going to have coming out just to see.
So researching hops, does that translate into we're going to be drinking beer?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
no. Unfortunately, it's reading descriptions
Oh, okay.
and the notes that it has to it, the aromatics that it has to it, the certain flavors that it pulls through.
So there's like a science journal for hops
Mhm.
and brewers.
Mhm. Yeah, and you can do you can get little samples and you do the hop sniff and like you rub your hands, rub their hop
Okay.
their hands, and then you smell.
And
And it
then,
gives you that aroma, like what you're gonna smell when you get the head of that beer.
which also gives you an indicator of the taste a
Mhm.
lot of the time. It's fascinating. And here, people thought it's just, hey, let me brew a little bit and set up a keg, and I have a microbrewery.
Nope,
No,
not that simple.
not at all. So, yeah, and you can decide not to disclose this, but I'm assuming because you said I saw this come across my desk, you were in corporate. I'm assuming you saw some kind of business plan.
Mhm.
They probably had a number for, hey, this is what's going to cost to start up.
Mhm.
Let's call it was $1 million, right? I don't know what the number is, but let's just call it $1 million.
Mhm.
How close was the actual final having the brewery up and running to what the business plan said it should be?
I don't actually have that figure, but I know it wasn't close. So, just like it's the same lineage as they're supposed to open at this time.
Right.
Take that date of the opening date that you're hoping for, tack on another 6 months.
Okay.
It's just construction, build out, delays in getting equipment, things like that. Because nothing ever runs as smoothly as you hope it to. So it can, but you always got to build in the incidental.
So if you build in a year to be up and running, tap on 6 months
I
to
tap
that.
on 3
just
to
for
6 just
3
in
to
case.
6. Okay. And that also, I mean, that depends largely on if you have a ready move-in space, if
Right.
you have to find, all
Mhm.
those variables.
Yeah.
So when you guys went out and looked for a space,
Mhm.
because I know you have been looking at spaces,
Mhm.
what are some of the things you guys look for? Because, I mean, opening a brewery is not like opening an office, right? Like
Right.
you can go out and find a building and go perfect,
Right.
When you're opening a brewery, you have to have a completely different set of things in mind as far as location goes.
Mhm.
So what were some of the things you guys look for as far as selecting a location?
Well, we looked a lot at it was, do we want to move? Do we want to stay? Get a second location? Like what's our driver here? And like we're still trying to figure out what exactly that looks like because we don't know if we want to keep like the brewery is going to stay the brewery. We're not going to brew out of another location unless we were to opt to we pick up everything and we move to a bigger space.
Okay.
Um, so it kind of goes along with what that individual brewery is looking for. Like take Well Crafted, for example. They just opened up a second location in Ambler
Okay.
a little while back. They took over a lease from Ambler Brewing, so
Everything was already there.
everything was there, including the brewing equipment. So now they're brewing out of both locations.
Got it.
So it was a little more.
It was an
It was
easier, they found a pre-made location and it was plug and play, so to speak.
Kinda, yeah.
Okay.
It was still like the licensing issues
Right.
and all that stuff.
So, but if I was opening up a brand new brewery tomorrow, what are some of the things I need to look at as far as space goes? Do I need to be aware of ceiling heights? Do I need to be aware of ventilation? Like,
Yep.
are is that all stuff you have to like fit out, or are there facilities that already have a lot of this stuff? Like, I'm assuming there's some kind of custom ventilation you guys need, and like,
Yeah, and it depends like a lot, like what space you're going into. Like we're in an industrial warehouse space. So the ceilings are higher and we've got 4 bay doors. So it wasn't as big of an issue for us to be able to move the tanks in when we got them and the mash tun and the kettle. But if you take like look at Trouble's End in Collegeville that went
okay.
in, when they changed everything up, they actually had to come in through the ceiling for the tanks.
So they had to remove
Mhm.
the ceiling to get the tanks in.
Yeah. So
And people don't realize those tanks are quite big.
mhm.
And it's not like they can be disassembled and then reassembled. Well, it can be done, but
Right.
it's not ideal.
No.
Like, it's cheaper to tear off a roof, lower a tank in, and rebuild the roof than it is to try to weld the tank on site
Mhm.
back together, right?
Yeah, and I mean, then if you're like, you don't really want to weld because you're risking leaks within the tank.
Mhm.
Like we had an issue where our 15, there was a leak somewhere. We couldn't find it. We had a welder come out. He actually went into the tank, and like it made me claustrophobic just walking through there. Um, but it's when you're talking about the welds, it can be tough, especially if it's like a double jacketed system because you don't know, you can't really pinpoint where the leak's coming from all the time. So if we can get them in there as a whole in one piece,
Without touching anything.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So, and I think some of the other things you need to look for is if in the brew space specifically, you typically want a floor drain. So that when your brewer's brewing and cleaning, all that water is just trenching down and running straight into the drain. So you're not trying to.
And there's a lot of places out there where you would not be able to install one
Mhm,
retroactively,
mhm,
especially like um, I've been into a couple of breweries that are in these like older type buildings,
mhm,
and it blows my mind, first of all, how they got some of the equipment in there,
mhm.
but pulling the roof off would explain it in many instances. And then, but that's the other thing, because like I've been inside these massive breweries, right?
Mhm.
And they're basically factories.
Right.
It's a food producing facility.
Right.
They just happen to produce beer,
Mhm.
right? They could make soda, they could make whatever.
Yep.
But you can tell they're designed as a factory from the get-go.
Mhm.
A lot of these smaller microbreweries and all that stuff are finding facilities and then having to make them work,
Right.
right? Which, like I said, I've been in a few where it's like, how the hell did they even do it,
Yep.
right? So, if someone wanted to start a microbrewery tomorrow, what's a piece of advice you would give them?
Do your due diligence and study. Take the time to truly research what you want to do, how big you want your size to be, where you want to be. Look at your demographic, look at what's going to be around you. Find your sweet spot, find your perfect location, and then just kind of build as you go and talk to everybody else in the industry because they're there because they went through it already. So get their input, get their insight, lean on them because they'll help you along the way.
So find your target market first and then find a way to function within that market.
Mhm.
I think that's actually good advice because, in real estate, they say what? Location, location, location.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess it's like a restaurant, right? If you open the wrong type of restaurant or the right type of restaurant in the wrong area,
Mhm.
you've minimized your chances of success.
Right.
I think with the breweries, that's even more true
Mhm.
because you need a certain type. I mean, there's certain types of people that love visiting. So
Right.
I'm sure you guys have regulars by now.
Mhm.
Well, I'm not sure because I know one of your regulars. So I'm positive you have regulars.
Hi, Tom.
Yeah. How long did it take you guys from the time you opened till the time you went, oh, they've been here before? Oh, and now all of a sudden it's like, hey, John. Hey, Tom.
It took me a while because our regulars had been established, and then I came in during COVID, so I didn't even get to see our regulars
Okay.
until everything had opened back up. And then it's just that it's the remembering the name. It's like, okay, she works in this space. Her name's Jean. I can remember it because of whatever my
Right.
memory was. But it's things like that. And then, like, not gonna lie, I've looked at the credit cards before. I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's good."
Right.
So there's all you got to use
But
your little trick.
but you guys, like I said earlier, have really become like a community brewery.
Mhm.
Like there are people that just come on a regular basis,
Yep.
and you have a following.
Mhm.
I think that's, and now I'm being biased because I kind of know a little bit more than, um, but I think part of your guys' success has been the product was good,
Mhm.
which is kind of fundamental. Um, you got involved in a lot of the business community, I think, early on, if I remember correctly. Like
Mhm.
you networked with other businesses, not just other brewers,
Yep.
but like you guys got involved with the chamber. There were all kinds of events there. And then you guys make a tremendous effort having community events,
Mhm.
like weekly, bringing in food trucks, bringing in entertainment, bringing in local
Yep.
people, right?
Vendor events, Jeep shows, car shows.
Yeah. But like 99% of it is all just local community.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And I will have you on when we get to the point where you have multiple locations, and we can talk about the stresses of running multiple locations. But until then, I will talk to everyone later.